Hello, everyone. Welcome to Seek, Go, Create. This is your host, Tim Winders, coming to you from the passenger seat of Theo. This is where we redefine success. We talk about leadership, business, ministry. Today, we're going to be talking, though, about us, we, you, me, the individual, and what we can do to build upon our God-given, gifted strengths that we have and use the way we were created to maximize our lives and live to our full potential. I'm excited about that. I love this topic. You know, I come from a school, a little bit old school, where we used to kind of get beat up with, improve your weaknesses, your strengths. Yeah, that's okay. And man, we're going to bust that up today. So I'll get to the guest in just a moment. But before we get to our guest, I just want to encourage you, depending on when you're listening to this, probably maybe the tail end of the year, beginning of the year, get ready for the best year you've ever had. I tell you, this is the time to really put some great things together. And all that we try to do here at Seek, Go, Create is about equipping you to really be the best you can do. That's what I usually wrap up the podcast with. But I just want to encourage you to be fully engaged today, because today I believe that you're going to get a valuable key that will unlock some greatness that's been inside of you for a while, but you just haven't recognized it. Others haven't recognized it. And today, listening in on this, I think that could be your day. So anyway, glad you're here. Welcome. Today we have Eddie Villa as our guest, and Eddie's a business and marketing coach, as well as a Gallup certified strengths coach. And let me just say this, for those that have been married, you know the deal with this. We have to listen to our wives. My wife came to me a while back and says, Tim, you've got to meet this guy. And then, Tim, you've got to have this guy on the podcast. Tim, this is a guy that y'all are going to really gel and you're going to have fun. So I have listened to my wife and I have studied some things that Eddie's doing. He and I are talking for the first time today. I've watched some of his seminars and things like that. But Eddie, welcome to Seek, Go, Create. Great to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here, Tim. I appreciate that. And I appreciate the kinship of listening to our wives. It was the greatest thing I ever did. So I'm with you on that.
If there's like a tip, tips 101, as far as being successful, that would probably be it in my book. So everything else is just gravy as far as that goes. But Eddie, let me ask you this before we get too much farther into this. We're going to go deep into strengths. We're going to talk about I'm going to talk about personality profiles and compare them to the one that you've got expertise in and things like that. But before we get too far, let's just pretend, and we kind of have, that we've just met. And I just kind of casually ask you, Eddie, what do you do? What do you typically tell people?
Why I like being honest and real. I want people to know right out the gate that I come from a very painful and flawed background. So I always tell people what I would tell you is that I've spent most of my life trying to do things and make other people happy. And it never worked really for me. I've been fired from many jobs and ultimately led to me not really liking me. So what I do is I teach other people how to be who they are, to generate their own income, and to base it all on what they are already good at, and to help people embrace the fact that it's true that they can do that. So that's what I do. I help people do things authentically in that way, because I know what it feels like to not like myself. I know what it's like to worry that I'm not enough. And so I help people learn through building a business, a family, whatever, to believe in themselves. So there you go. That's what I do.
So let me dig a little bit deeper into that. What's it like?
Sure.
And I do know what it's like, but I'm going to ask you, what's it like trying to be who you are not? Let's go ahead. I think I think there's people listening in going, oof, let's talk about that.
I think most of us, and I'd say a good portion of people, and myself included, want people around us to be happy. Like, we want people to be, in some sort of alignment, some sort of flow. And so for me, one of my strengths is a strength called strategic, which I didn't know I had until after I took the assessment. But basically, it's like I would look at how people operate and interact, the ones that I cared about most, and I'm seeing how if they could make this adjustment or that adjustment, then everything would go really well for them. And so I would try to help them do that. And then then I would, interject myself constantly. And then when I realized that no one wanted to hear that, shocking, right? That nobody wants to hear your advice, especially when it's unsolicited. I started to feel like whatever it is I was seeing or thinking or feeling or experiencing myself was like, it was a mistake. And it started to feel like maybe I was the mistake. And so the harder and harder I tried to help people get what I thought they wanted, the less like I was actually doing it. In fact, I was pushing people away, causing, for me, it felt like I was causing people to reject me. And it actually created, like, for me, a sensitivity to rejection. Like when I got fired, I've been fired many times in my life, but after I became a father and then I started having kids, I was trying not to get fired. I was trying really hard to make my bosses happy. And this one particular company I worked for them for 7 years. And during that time, I was promoted 5 times and I got good at it until I realized, and this is the nightmare of making people happy, Tim. After 7 years of working with this particular company, I spent all of my time trying to help them get what they wanted and completely ignored what I wanted personally. And so my job became about serving other people's needs. So to answer your question in a long way, I guess, would be to say, to try to make other people happy is I would say, a commitment to misery. Because I'm never going to be happy that way. And I don't see how any of us could be, if we're consciously trying to make other people happy. So that's
Eddie, yeah, right now, I mean, it's kind of been in the news and, sometimes we don't like to timestamp these episodes, but, coming out of a pandemic and all these things going on any statistics will show that 40 up to 80% I've heard of people that are working in situations are either sort of passively or actively looking for another job or wanting to quit their job or wanting to do something else.
Yeah.
And to me, I believe the root of it is what you just said. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Yeah. You feel it, especially when you work. Like for me, the goal was to find a job that was steady and stable and dependable. Well, the best one to do that is with a large corporation. And in the large corporation is the easiest place to lose your identity. So yeah, we feel it.
Well, so my story, I came out of Georgia Tech. I was an engineer. I don't think I was supposed to be an engineer, but I got a degree in engineering, went to work for a large corporation, Bell South, and was married or about to be married, very similar to what you were talking about. And almost like day one, I was trying to figure out a way to get out of that job. Yeah. Literally, I recognized that I did not function well with a boss in a corporate structure with someone telling me what to do, sort of punching a clock, not really, but it was almost like immediately, and I didn't know it at the time because of my spiritual background then, but now I recognize it was eating away at my soul and literally just causing, and we don't shy away from that conversation here on Seek, Go, Create either. We believe that we're, spirit, soul, and body. So we have spiritual discussions too, but I think it just eats away with people and people just hollow-eyed. Here's what it reminds me of, Eddie. I think we have this here in these quote unquote free countries like the US, but back in about 96, I went over, we were involved with network marketing. I know you've got some background in that area too, multi-level marketing business. We actually were involved with the Amway business, and that's what freed me up from my corporate job. And then I was traveling and taking that business overseas. And I actually was speaking to a group in Romania shortly after the wall came down there.
Wow.
Eddie, I remember looking out and just seeing, first of all, everything was gray and there was no life in the eyes of these 200 people that were out there.
Wow.
And to me, what you're saying is like that. It's almost just like sucking the life out of people. Yeah. And it's really, man, it's discouraging. So tell us what snapped you out of it, because usually there's some type of an event or something happens.
It was an event.
Slaps you in the face. What happened?
Well, for me, it was definitely an event. In fact, I've written a book called Unleash Your Strengths, but I've just finished my second book where I tell this story about what happened. To sum it up as quickly as possible, every day when you go to work, you have these instincts and these feelings of how a thing should or shouldn't be done. And you really feel like passionate about that. But if you feel like no one's going to care or want to hear that, then you have to shut it down. You have to stifle it. You have to put it away and lock it up. And that's ultimately that's the death that you're talking about. It's almost like stabbing the instinct. But what happened for me was I was realizing after my 5th promotion with this company that I was working all the time, and what I love about what I do now versus what I did then is that, you know, everything I do, every month, you know, carries on to the next month and the next month, versus then I could have the greatest month in the world and the next month it means nothing. Right? On the first of the month, whatever you did last month means nothing unless you failed, in which case you had better pick it up this month, right? So living a life like that, and then, you know, and so everyone can get a picture of this. I worked in the apartment management industry with the largest real estate company in California. And my life was like trying to make things as efficient as possible. So I lived on the property I managed. And I was, at the time, I was the leasing manager of about 1,400 units. My job was to drive sales. And so I was always working. And then our apartment, 3-bedroom apartment with my kids, at the time we had 5 kids, was, you know, just like a little 5-minute walk away from my office. So I had my office and my apartment, right? My family and my work right in the same place so that I can get home as quickly as possible. So what happened was I discovered this little patch of grass on our community. It was just a nice little empty area with a bench. And every day I would come out of my office and I would look at that bench and I'd go, wow, how nice it would be just to sit down and breathe. This is one of the reasons why so many of us want to get out, but we don't even have the time to like figure out what we want to do, or even believe in ourselves, or develop a talent or a skill that could give us the strength to walk away, right? And that's what that little patch of grass meant for me, was maybe I could sit there and breathe and think about what I would rather be doing than what I'm doing now. And then I would get home and the responsibilities to be a dad would instantly begin because I'd been gone all day. And so it's like I had the same kind of feeling there. How do I make my family happy? And then I would pass the patch of grass, and then I'd come to work, and how do I make my bosses happy? And then I pass the patch of grass and I kind of go, that patch of grass is where making me happy is. And I had this big fear of stopping in that patch of grass, because what if my family came out and said, why is dad sitting there when he could get home and he's been gone all day? And then I would worry that one of my employees would walk by and go, why is this guy lazy right here when he should be in his office working? So I couldn't even freaking stop there. So I wrote this book, which I'm calling Unleashed, Fired Twice, Freedom Forever, where I'm talking about that patch of grass kind of broke the cycle. And what happened afterwards was an inevitable result of the inability to keep doing it, but without being able to stop it. I began to have these like weird little things would go wrong. Like I would make rookie mistakes at work, and the rookie mistakes got to be too much for the company to bear. And I went from getting promoted all the time to getting written up all the time. And then eventually I was fired. Like it just, my soul couldn't fake it anymore. You know, it's almost like I tried to make it so that my life would be in that patch of grass for once. And the sabotage began. So that if I could say it was one thing, it was discovering that patch of grass.
You know, that the analogy there, the patch of grass, is so cool because myself, I can sit here and think of times that there's been a patch of grass that has been pulling me. I think anybody listening would say there's a patch of grass. And so we may play off that as we go through out here, because I think that patch of grass represents what you're created for, what you're designed for.
Yes.
You know, from the beginning, it's what God brought you into this earth for. And it's what all of us are moving towards or attempting to. And the longer we stay away from it, the more damaging it can be for us. And you know, for you, you know, it sounds like it was a loss of job, which is devastating. But for a lot of folks, it's health issues, it's stress, it's strain. I think it's extremely stressful to be outside of whatever you were created to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like, gut wrenching and all. So, all right. So you had that patch of grass. How did you get to, are you there yet? Are you at the patch of grass? You're there. You seem like you're there.
Oh yeah. Oh, and my family's there. This is what's wonderful about it. My family's there and they're happy there. But it has nothing to do with me trying to consciously make them happy.
Well, they're happy there because you're there, because
Yeah,
dad's
exactly.
there. So the
Me,
family
like
is there.
actually me, like who I really am, not the guy who was trying to make them happy and everybody else happy. It's me who is genuinely happy, genuinely fulfilled with what I do, and having an access to unlimited amount of income, relationships, health, all those things, because I'm just being me. And what I love about what it's like to live in that patch of grass is my kids feel like that's the best place for dad to be. And so that's where they want to be for themselves.
Yeah, that's cool.
Right.
All right. So one quick thing you brought up though, because this is what goes through a lot of people's minds. So let's go ahead and address this elephant on the patch of grass right now. You brought up income,
Yeah.
and you brought up that every time you walk by it, you said, I'm going to feel guilty if I sit there on that bench on that patch of grass because I need to provide for my family. That's a great thing that goes through people, or something that goes through people's mind. People that work for you or with you are going to go, look, our boss, the guy we're working with, he's sitting out there on that bench. What's up with him? So there's this guilt, there's this, I'm not going to be able to make money, but you just said you've got income that's flowing in because you're now on that patch of grass. Give somebody some encouragement that income almost is removed from the equation when you start getting around that. It's my observation. Maybe it's not yours, but what happens with the money piece when you get to that patch of grass? I'm going to use that too, by the way. We're going to talk about that here.
You bet. Like, in other words, how can I generate an income in the patch of grass? Is that?
Yeah, because how'd you make the transition? You got fired. You told us earlier. You got fired.
That's the worst part. That's like the most painful part. So I got fired, and I like a total trauma response without even like really acknowledging it. I just did what I'm supposed to do. Just go get another job. And I got another job in Utah. We moved the whole family in Utah in just a couple of days. And then I started working for a different company doing the exact same thing with the same mindset. And then I was fired again in 30 days. So to help understand this income thing, I remember walking home with a box of my things because I didn't have the guts to call my wife to tell her to pick me up. We only had one car. And we had just moved to a whole new state and like knew nobody, right? So as I'm walking home, and this is the income part that to answer your question, I'm thinking the worst part about this is not that I've been fired and that I have to find another job, because that's actually the easiest part. Of course I could find another job, but why would I keep doing this to myself? It appears to me the most unstable income source is to work for someone else. That was what I discovered on that walk home. And then the question that I should have been asking all along is, how can I generate an income just by relying on myself? Because I know that if I'm doing something that I am personally passionate about and called to do, then I'll wake up every morning with joy to do it. And money becomes, I mean, it's weird to say this, becomes like so effortless and easy that I don't even care about it anymore. Where it used to be a stressful thing, worrying about whether or not we have enough money and saving, going to the store and making sure that we stay on budget so that when we go to the register, and you've all felt this, where you're the person scanning the food and you're praying that it doesn't go over the budget, because it's so embarrassing to say, can we put this back? Can we put this back? I would spend my whole life like that. And so since then, this was back in 2011, right? And it's 21 now. It's like 10 years ago. That was my mindset back then. Now that I understand like how to leverage the internet and how to work in network marketing and other things where it's just based on me getting clear about what a passion is for me, looking at it now, that was the question I should have been asking all along, is not what happens if I lose my job. It's like, what greatness can come? What options do I now have if I wasn't working for someone anymore? These are better questions to ask for myself.
Yeah, those are good questions. And I think it's what goes through a lot of people's minds when they start thinking about, and there's a mantra that's kind of I'm not sure that it's always correct. Maybe we can kind of adjust it here. And that is
Okay.
find something you love and do it and get paid for it.
Yeah.
And I mean, listen, I used to joke about this. I love sitting around and watching cartoons. I don't really, but that it sounds good. But I don't know that's a way to make money or anything. I mean, some people love sitting around watching
Hey,
sports, and my wife and I always joke.
people make
talk
money with
sports.
weirder things, man. It's okay.
They do, but to me, I think the bridge that we need to move towards here is it's not find something you love, it's find what the strengths are that you have and were created for.
Yeah.
That's what happens on that patch of grass, correct? Is that right?
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. The patch of grass, it, to me, was like a doorway to something I didn't know about me, but longed for. And I felt like if I could go through that gateway, that doorway, whatever that looks like physically, right? If I could go through that doorway, then I'll discover what my talents and strengths are. So to answer your question, yes, I would say absolutely. It's in there. We all have it. I mean, we are like, one of the things I love about the Gallup Strengths Assessment, it shows that we are infinitely unique, right? We are something that's never occurred or ever will occur again. And then you take that with our strengths and we combine it with our infinitely unique combination of daily experiences, right? So we have something that no one else could ever or will ever be able to produce or create or give perspective on. To me, I wanted to know what that was and how could I just spend my whole life doing that? That's, to me, was like, oh, that would be fun, right? Imagine that, waking up every morning excited.
Yeah. What a great concept, man.
Possible.
That's the way it should be. So, all right.
I
So
think
Eddie,
so.
so somewhere along the way there, 10 years ago plus or whatever,
Mhm.
you were introduced to the Gallup Strengths, which has been around for a while, powerful tool. And obviously it unleashed, I'm using the reference to the unleashed here. I've got your book. I read it the other night. So you
Right.
unleashed some things inside you. Kind of tell a little bit how you were exposed to that, as opposed to, we're not going to bash a lot of the other profiles and other things like that. I may
Oh,
mention
it's
that in
great.
just a moment,
Totally fine.
but the strengths have some power to them. So, how'd you get introduced to it, and why did it resonate so much with you?
So this is actually kind of a funny story. When you do network marketing, it's impossible to not get a lot of self-development tools pushed into your way, right? And thankfully, I was already into that. At the time that I got introduced to strengths, I had finally started to do some self-development on myself because I needed it so bad. Like I really needed to start loving who I am, Tim. All these stupid things I've done in my life, it just piled up to the point where I just hated me. And so I spent like 2 years of my life trying to fix that through a lot of things, which I will have to cut the story on that. But when I got introduced to strengths, I was on my upward, travels. But maybe like you or anybody else, when I got introduced to the assessment, I rolled my eyes because I'm just like, how many of these assessments do I have to take to do network marketing? How many personality tests do I have to take to develop myself? I hated the whole concept. And the reason why I hated it was because I felt like personality tests grouped me. And I never believed I belonged to a group, right? Like you can see my office here, I've got a bunch of Star Wars stuff, right? And I've got, a guitar and books, and like, what group does that belong to, right? There's just not a group for that. I'm a group of one, if you will, that I can move in any group. But when I went to the training on strengths, I learned that strengths is about specifically finding out what is unique about you. That's what excited me. And for the first time in my life, I saw there could be a place where I could learn what is unique about me and only be that. That was so attractive, to learn who I am, what makes me unique and different, and to be able to use it and articulate it, and know that it's a good thing. So the way I went about it is, you probably read it in my book, but I'll go quick on this. I spent a year of my life talking to thousands of people. I called it coaching so that they would work with me because I was already coaching people at that time. But I did it for free, and I just needed to know how this thing worked. But the byproduct of that was I was learning things about strengths that Gallup wasn't talking about. And so that's when the obsession really took over, because I was seeing results. I was seeing how I was helping people love who they are and get results. And that was helping me love who I am and get results. So when I got introduced to strengths, it was March of 2018. And we're recording this now at the end of 2021. And I haven't gone a day without talking about it, coaching it, training it, breaking down someone's strengths report. I'm obsessed. This is just the greatest thing ever to me. And the wonderful thing, even special thing about it is that it's personalized. It's my way of looking at strengths. The things that I teach about strengths is not things you would find on Gallup's website or any other coachings. This is something that is very unique to my own perspective that's making a difference for people. Tim, I found the patch. I found what the patch of grass was supposed to lead me towards.
Yeah, I'll have to say that it might have been a couple nights ago. My wife Glory had one of your webinars on, and I was watching it, and I'll tell you that there was a lady that kind of shared her profile, and you, gosh, in such a, I think the word I used with Glory was such a compassionate and loving way, reached down and just helped her see what those strengths were in a way that no one ever has. And I thought that was beautiful. And so I do agree that you have found that patch of grass. I do want to say one thing that's interesting. We've interviewed on the show, I think it released in June of 2020, maybe, Benjamin Hardy, who wrote a book on personality isn't permanent. And he was pretty much saying, be cautious of all these personality. You got the book behind you there, all these personality profiles. Yeah. And I have been doing this, in leadership and training and coaching since longer than I would care to remember. I don't look as old as I really am. I remember doing disc profiles, Myers-Briggs been around, Enneagram super popular and all of that. And I want to say this kind of early on is that I think all those have value, but to me, they're missing something when they're going to just that personality piece of it. And I think it goes back to what you said. They're really trying to group people.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we're trying to be efficient. That's what we are as human beings, to be efficient, to take things as complex as a human being and make it simple. Right. We've been doing it since we were born because our parents taught us how to do it because they've been doing it since they were born, and so when you look at a person, you see what they do and boom, you want to group them and then that's it, done. I don't have to think about it anymore. But what I'm learning is that it's not just about personality. It's about what we care about most and then how we go about doing things to honor that. That is as complex and unique as our thumbprint.
Yeah. And another thing you said that I just want to acknowledge, because I'm in total agreement with this. The biggest growth that I've ever had in my life is being a part of a network marketing business, because I'm forced to look at myself and be the best I can be. And listen, I know we've got listeners that might be participating in that and a lot that may not, some people, whatever. I mean, but I will say, I've always said, I wish that there was a way that everyone could experience the personal development that's within organizations that do network marketing. Quick thoughts on that before we move on to strengths and weaknesses and things like that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm an influencer by nature. We've talked about this in strengths and whatnot. And when it comes to influencer and strengths, it's people who are energized by moving people forward. The truth is, I wish this had nothing to do with building a network marketing business or any business. It's just, this is what I was designed and created by God to be. And it feels true. I mean, it is true because it feels so true. So to tell you, I wish it had nothing to do with internet businesses or marketing or whatever. It was just how to be a better mom or a better husband or a better brother or a better church leader or whatever it is you feel called to do. Turtle wrangler. I don't know.
Cowboy, whatever it is. Yeah.
Whatever. It doesn't matter. Yeah.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. I do wish that there was that mechanism that people would drive to that personal development, identifying, what their strengths are in other arenas, but it is powerful within that arena. So, all right, Eddie, let's shift a little bit, because what I really want to do is to kind of get into some of the skill sets that I saw you do. I've seen it. I've got your books and workbook here. And
Okay.
so I want to get, I guess, core level, base level here. And I want to hear you tell us why it's important to focus on our strengths and not our weaknesses, because some of us are of the age where we were told you need to work on your weaknesses. And I know there are people that have been hammered with their weaknesses all their lives. So why is it so important to focus on strengths?
Well, I've got to defer just a little bit to Don Clifton on this one. He was the creator of strengths, or maybe I would say the discoverer of strengths, right? In the same way Ben Franklin discovered lightning, I think Don Clifton discovered strengths. And what his feeling was much like mine was, he felt exhausted by the fact that school systems and employment systems are all about developing weaknesses instead of leveraging what we're already good at. The common belief is we have to be everything. That is what well-balanced is. I've got to be compassionate and structured at the same time. I have to be emotional and inspirational. It's like I don't know if you, about you, Tim, but I've never met a person who just passionately loves advanced calculus and then at the same time can sense the feelings and emotions and even care about the emotions of a human being, right? These are very contrasting types of things. Maybe there are people that can do it. It's extremely rare, as you can see, right? And so when we think about it, then what we were meant to do is serve a certain need. And in serving that need, we then do everything but our way. Just to keep it simple on this, I am not what I would describe in Clifton Strengths as well. I wouldn't describe myself as a relationship builder. I am not energized by just making friends. But what I am energized by is by doing things with people who want to inspire other people, much like yourself. And through that desire to make a difference in the world and connect and, make a difference in the world and move people forward, I end up connecting and being very relationship based. And so I end up building the best friendships ever because I'm doing it with that focus. And then I learned, wow, through those friendships, I'm highly productive, even though that's not an energizer for me. Like to make a list and get stuff done is not an energizer. In fact, that'll make me want to sleep. But you know what I mean? So these kind of things. So I learned that by focusing on myself, I do everything my way. And then it gives me space to bring other people into my world because I believe this is what we were meant to do. I believe we were meant to work with other people. We were not meant to do things on our own. And I know that for a fact because for me, to worry about what everyone's thinking or feeling is a constant de-energizer.
Mm.
Right?
You know, I think the cool thing about what you're talking about is that within our school systems, within most of what we see in the world, we're kind of taught to be everything for everybody, to, like you talked about earlier, be something that you're not created to be. And I think what that does is it takes away the way God created us.
Yeah.
We have, so this is going to be kind of interesting here in a little while. I'm going to share my strengths, and you and I actually may be more similar than different. We'll find that out here in just a moment. But I do think that we're a tapestry. And the beauty of the world is when people come together and say, hey, I've got this strength, you've got this strength, you know, this person has this strength. Let's come together and let's do something. And unfortunately, I think we've been kind of told if it is to be, it's up to me. I'm supposed to do it all by myself. And so that means I've got to make all of these flaws, these weaknesses work. And man, so you've interacted with a lot of people and you've exposed them to their strengths. Maybe before we do that though, I think most people probably know now the Cliftons, but it used to be the Gallup Strengths. Why don't you give us a little overview of that, the history of it, so people know kind of what that is. And then I want to get into your unique talents within that framework, because I've seen what you do and it's powerful. So, but give us an overview of that Clifton Strengths before we get too much farther.
So what maybe even what sets Clifton Strengths apart from most other assessments is that it's based on research from a massive amount of people. One of the things I could always say about Gallup, they are the best in the entire world at telling you what the world is doing or thinking or feeling. Gallup can actually poll millions of people right here, right now. And that's incredible to be able to do that, right? And so what they did was they polled a little over 2 million people in order to, and I'm summing up a lot here, in order to eventually come to discover that we have 34 unique talents and strengths in a specific order that shows what is basically identifying how we love to do everything and what we care about most. Like that would be my best way to sum up something as complex as this. And that's where it began. And so when you take the assessment, you have to answer about 177 questions. And what's great about this is even if you flub like 30 or 40 of them, you're still going to get an accurate assessment, which is really relaxing, right? So tell people, because when you're answering the questions, you don't get time. You have to go off your gut, which some people don't like making decisions that way, right? Anyway, so then when you get your strengths assessment, it shows what your strengths are in order from 1 through 34. Your number 1 strength would be your highest energy strength with lowest amount of resistance, like you're most excited to do things that way. And then your 34th strength has the lowest amount of energy and the most amount of resistance, which is where you are, what I would say is called de-energized. So if you try to do something with that strength, it would be the opposite of what you're trying to create. Okay, so there you go.
All right. And I know that there's so much that sets that apart, and again, we don't want to necessarily say anything negative about Myers-Briggs, DISC, and all these kind of things, but
they have their value. They actually, what I love about other assessments is they all blend nicely with strengths. And I think that's because strengths is so, accurate when it comes to the uniqueness of a human being.
Sure. My thought is what I love about this is I think that foundation should be strengths and you could layer some of the others on top. I don't necessarily like taking some of the others, and I'll tell you exactly what I found, Eddie. I'll go ahead and share this. I was with the Bell South Leadership Institute for years, and we used to give DISC profiles to managers and people in corporate environments. And then I did that privately. And people like me, who was a high D at one point before I shifted to an influence, I would wear that with a badge of honor and start beating my chest when I found out that I was a D in the room. And I would also find people, Eddie, I would also see people when they were grouped into a certain thing, they would kind of slump down in their chair a little bit because it wasn't perceived as valuable in that corporate setting as a hard charger type A D personality. And it started distressing me. It really bothered me to see people do that. It wasn't focused on that individual. And so anyway, all right, so we've done that. So now let's shift. And at the root of this, there's that weakness. We're not necessarily going to identify all these weaknesses and, go to courses and learn how to do this to, improve upon our weaknesses. We're going to focus on strengths. So talk about that and why that is so powerful.
To put it simply, I would tell the person who's listening to this, think about what it is you want to accomplish, whether it's make more money or maybe improve your marriage, become a better parent, better employee, maybe start a business, whatever. You think about what you feel called to do. And then there's 2 different responses after that. Either you're going to be encouraged and you'll feel like, oh my gosh, I can totally do that, because it's clear to me how being who I am will help me do that. The other one is more common, which is we compare ourselves to other people who have done those things, maybe people that have inspired us to do those things. And we immediately say to ourselves, well, if that's what I have to be in order to be successful, then I don't think this is going to work because I can't do that. Right? Like no matter what it is, get up on stage or be structured or care about people or whatever, or even like be super like knowledgeable or nerdy, right? About information. It's always one of those four, or maybe two of those four, being someone who's highly inspiring and can talk like myself, right? You can tell I have no problem with that. Or being someone who is really structured and puts things down and just boom, 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 like robotic, or somebody who is inspired by learning and going on deep dives of information and then being able to take complex things and explain them. Or you just have to be someone who just feels the feelings of others and can emotionally connect. What a daunting thing it would be to have to be all of those things. Like that's, I'll be honest, that's crazy, but we think that way because we were trained that way by telling us we need to develop our weaknesses. Because if I'm really good at relationships and connecting with people, then back in the day would have been like, okay, great, Eddie, you got people, you understand people. Let's stop taking all these communication classes that you're doing in college and let's work on some math classes, let's work on some science classes. Let's work on, I have so many communication credits in college. It's ridiculous. But it's like, let's work on some, let's do some history lessons, let's work on these kinds of things. Let's work on art or structure and things like that. To me, that it's just never going to happen. As I could force it, but it sounds like a miserable life for me. So how can I sell that to another person, or let alone one of my children, if I myself hate it? So anyway, the bottom line there is the concept of what strengths is when we think about what we want to do, then we think about what we enjoy doing, and then learn how to do that one thing in a way that satisfies all the needs of those other things. And then even brings in people who are passionate about the things that you're not, and you can partner up with them. That's the concept. That's why we focus on strengths.
Yeah. And what I love about that, I mean, the thing that kind of popped in my mind is it's almost like we're giving people permission to be what they were created to be.
Just be what excites them,
like what excites you, what you're created for, what's your strength. That's I mean, it sounds so simple when we say that, but yet it's
hard to fight that old programming, man.
it goes against the grain, which is one of the things I want to ask you, because one of the things you did as you dove into this back in 2018 is that you said that you interacted with a lot of people and you coached and you probably went through their profiles and all that. What were some things that I guess surprised you or shocked you or whatever? I don't know. You could just, what did you really learn?
This is simple. Big picture. I learned that there is no perfect strength. There is no one strength that works like that is the best strength for you to have. Everybody that's got this strength high, there's a group of people that don't have it high that wish they had it. And then the ones that have it high wish they had what the other people have. Everyone, Tim, every single person I coached and worked with and still work with this day goes, okay, I get that's who I am, but I'm not this. And then I see this other person and they are that. And then I would go to that person and I'd ask them, hey, what? And they'd say the same stupid thing. Oh, I can see what's great about this, but I don't have what they have. And I'm like, both of you are looking at each other's lawns like this, the greatest lawn ever. What is the grass is greener on the other side? That was the biggest shocking thing. There is no perfect strength for anything. What I learned was whatever it is you feel called to do, then you already have the talents and the strengths to do it. The only problem is you don't believe it. And that's what I want to do.
Yeah. The thing about it's interesting. You mentioned earlier, being able to compare, and that's one of the things that happens quite a bit in some of these other profiles is it creates even more comparison. We could go down this path of the social media world and things like that makes it so easy to compare, but it seems as if, and you tell me if I'm wrong on this, but one of the things that the Strengths Finder does is it really pulls out the uniqueness, and you really can't compare yourself to others. I guess you could, but
it's pointless.
It's pointless,
absolutely
right?
Pointless, because there is no one like you, and there is no one like the people you're comparing yourself to. So to compare yourself to another person is pointless, unless there is one exception, which is if that energizes you, if that thrills you to see what another person's doing and be inspired, but then actually go to work. See, there's a difference between inspired by a person and then inspired by them and actually go to work and do something. For people who have the competition strength very high, they can be energized by comparison, but they're the only ones. Everybody else, it's pointless to compare because we're not like that. That's just not who we are. I can't be you, Tim. I can't do what you do. What you do is remarkable, right? I can't do that. I have another type of remarkable, and you can't do that, which is cool. Then it makes it realize, oh my gosh, if we all do something unique and remarkable, then we need each other.
Yeah, I love that. All right, before we, there's a couple things I wanted to ask from your book, Unleash Your Strengths. We'll, if you want to mention some things about that, we can. But you talked about, this is the thing that is always intriguing to me, is I think when people are, well rested, life's going great, all that kind of stuff, we're functioning in one way. But then, you brought up things like stress, fatigue, pressure, things like that. And then, and maybe the way people respond. See, I actually have this thought that people are more stressed when they're operating outside of who they really are.
Yeah.
But then also we do know that there are situations that occur, in work or business that kind of causes stress and all that. Talk a little bit about what happens to people with their strengths when they're under stress, fatigue. I think you've got a chapter about it, but just give us a few little tips or pointers or just ideas related to that.
Yeah, the simplest explanation is the lack of belief that you're the right one to do whatever it is you want to do. It's just that, you believe you're the wrong person, but you're in the situation and you need the problem solved, but you are not the right person to solve it. So what I've learned is that your strengths are unique, your problems aren't.
Ouch, that hurts.
They're not unique. There's at least one person that's ever had that problem, right? So if the problems aren't unique, then I am the solution. And if we go to every problem or goal or vision or excitement, whatever, with the belief that I am the right person, maybe I don't know yet, but I want to do the work to go see it or find out, or I'm just going to believe I'm the right person until I see it actually happen. When we're in the belief that we're not the right people, Simon Sinek talks about it. He calls it the cortisol drip, right? The constant fight or flight fluid that flows from our brain into our body. And when you're living like I was working when I was working full time for another company, constantly believing I wasn't the right person, right? Having to re-audition for my job, I experienced a cortisol drip. It's not shocking that I had high blood pressure issues, or it's not shocking that I had health concerns. It's not shocking that these things were problems, because not believing I'm the right person is what caused me to be sick. And so when we're in our high strengths, we're happy, we're alive, we believe in ourselves, our energy is flowing. We even like our body improves, like we actually get healthier, which is a miracle, right? But if we doubt ourselves, that's when the misery comes. When we think our problems are something that nobody has ever had, right? You know what I mean?
Isolate. Yeah. We
isolate, we become the opposite of who we are.
Yeah, we think we're super special. All right. Now, one of the things that you also talk about is leadership. We've got a lot of leaders that listen in, and, it's not just about ourselves. It's also about leading others. And you address that. I think it's chapter 15. I made a note here. You talk about, I think there are 4 things: trust, hope, compassion, and stability.
Yeah.
But how does, see, there are some people that they think that there's a certain strength that leads to leadership. I don't believe that. We've talked about that a good bit in other episodes. We don't have to go into it here, but I believe that everyone is equipped to lead, but you talk about those 4 words, kind of give a little bit of background in what you address in the book related to being a leader, moving from just, leading yourself to now interacting and leading other people.
Yeah. Well, first, just quickly on this one, I don't believe there are the right strengths for leadership, because I've worked with so many people and I have yet to see a consistent on the strengths of a leader. There are none. I've coached thousands, and I'm going to say probably getting into the tens of thousands by now. And I have yet to see where all leaders who are in high level leadership positions having the same combination of strengths. It's not a thing. Right. So pray that everybody lets go of that belief that there is something that they have to be that they're not. right? When it comes to the trust, hope, compassion, and stability, this is based on Gallup research. They've polled again over, I think it was over 5 or 10 million people. I forget what it is, but basically they just asked people, the question is, what is it you're looking for in someone you want to follow or be led by? And out of all the answers, the 4 that came up the most were, I want someone I can trust, right? Which is somebody who is consistently being who they are. You can trust a person who's consistently being who they are because they have a certain what's called behavioral predictability, right? You can trust people when they're always being them. If they're flip-flopping, it's hard to trust them, right? i.e. politicians. Okay, so then the second one would be compassion, right? What compassion is to stop the belief that who you are, everyone must be like. We need to let go of that. Like the way that we view the world, the way that we see things should or shouldn't happen is the way everyone should. That's not true. It's just how you should. And then you help the other people do the same. That's compassion. It's like you had said when I was on that call, there was a person on that call who does things completely different than I would ever do them. And if I tried to do them their way, it would make me miserable, but it energizes them. That's compassion, right? That's a hard thing to do. But if you're a leader that can see that everyone has a valuable way of doing things, boom, you got that. Hope. What I love about hope is hope requires vulnerability. That means that you have to be vulnerable and say, here's where I was, a total screw up, and I just tried something and it worked. I'm still a mess in certain areas, but this really worked. And by telling people your story and getting good at that, you can create hope and then help people know that their story is just as valid as yours, right? And then stability, the hardest one for people to realize, you don't have to be a consistent, structured person to show stability. You just need to show up. You just need to show up. If you show up every day, you are giving off the feeling of stability because you don't go away. You're always there. And those 4 things is what I talk about in my book a lot more in depth. I'm very passionate about teaching those 4 things because those work. That's what helps people follow us. And that's why we follow certain people, because they're showing off those 4 things.
The reason I love that, Eddie, is because I'm sitting here thinking, you brought up politicians, so I'll just kind of go down that path. And this is not one side or the other. This is in general.
Yeah.
We see such poor examples of those items and leadership in our world today that I think it causes us to not understand what real leadership is. So I loved that. I'm glad I asked that. And I do agree it's more in depth in the book. People can get that. We'll mention later where they can do that. But I do agree. It kind of starts with being authentic and being who you are and who you're created for. Because if all of a sudden you're not, you're becoming a hypocrite, you're trying to pretend, you're comparing all these things. And so the root comes back to identifying your strengths, which is what we're talking about here. And one of the things I'm going to encourage people to do, and we've got a little more time here, I'm going to actually ask, we're going to do something cool here. I'm going to kind of share my strengths. We're going to have some discussion about it. And I think my wife gave me hers, and I'm going to let you maybe talk about some things with couples and business people and all that.
Oh, I love that concept. I love that. I love the way it works in relationships and marriages. It's one of my favorite.
Cool. So we'll have a little fun with that. But what I want to mention to the person listening in, before we wrap up, we will get to maybe where they could go, do a test on their own, how they can connect with you, those type things. Because one of the things I'm really wanting to encourage with this isn't about me necessarily going through my strengths or my wife's or anything like that. I'm really wanting every listener to start dialing in what they were created and to be. And I believe that this is a big help for it. And I believe that you could help them. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to mention it here. But are you okay? Can we jump into into some profiles? All right. Who do you want first? You want me or Glory? Who do you want first?
Let's do yours. But here's the thing. I want to do the thing that all magicians do at the beginning of their show, right? When they bring a guest up on the show, they always do the same thing. Now, we've never met before, right?
We haven't.
Or talk. Like, I want people to know this is the first conversation you and I have ever had. And glory, I would say I almost don't know it all either, right? I barely know glory. And so just so people understand where I am with this whole thing. Okay, let's take a look at, and I have my notebook head, so I'm gonna have to write out. I'm more of a visual person, so I'd have to write them.
Yeah, I do want to affirm that we haven't. I mean, I think Glory bumped into you at a conference. Y'all had a brief chat.
Yeah.
And someone said, "Hey, you need to meet Tim. You need to be on his podcast and all that." So you're correct.
And they didn't tell me anything about you. They said nothing. And even if they did, I probably wouldn't remember anyway.
So I'm looking at the one page, kind of like the first page summary with my top 10 and
perfect
all the way down to my 34. So what do you want to know? What do you need?
Well,
what do you need
so
just to have a conversation?
This is easy. So you've got 1 through 34, right?
Yep.
Okay. So real quick, before I break it down, just super fast, your strengths report is broken into 3 quadrants. Okay. There's a high energy quadrant, which is like from what we're going to talk about today is 1 through 10. And then somewhere in the middle is no energy. And what I call it meh, like who cares? It doesn't matter. And then the bottom quadrant would be negative energy or drama. Okay. So where you are energized is in the top and only the top. The middle and the bottom is either boring or physically draining. Okay. So just so we understand that first. So let's start with your top 10.
Top 10. Ready?
Yeah.
Number 1, strategic.
Okay. Hold on. You and I both have that the same at number 1. That's awesome. Number 2.
Yeah. Number 2, maximizer.
Okay. 3.
Relator.
Okay. Number 4.
Woo.
Okay. Number 5.
Communication.
Okay. Okay. Number 6.
Self-assurance.
Okay. Number 7.
Ideation.
Gee. Okay. Number 8.
Positivity.
Okay. Cool. Number 9.
Was that a wrong answer? You laughed. Was that wrong?
No, I just have emotional responses when I see these combinations, and sometimes they make me giggle. Sometimes they're intense or shocking, but I like the words.
Yeah, mine is like, oh no, he's judging me. Oh no.
I know, I get that a lot. I can't help it. I react emotionally when I hear them.
Where are we at?
Positivity, and then
belief. Number 9.
Is that number 9? Okay.
Yep.
And then number 10.
Significance.
Wow. Okay. Okay. So first off, right off the bat, without even going into these, first, I just want everybody to know these words that Gallup chose to label these strengths, very few of them, I would say, do a really good, accurate representation of what the strength is. So when you hear those words, you really have to check your thoughts about what those words mean at the door. Because one would think that a person who's high in relator enjoys relating to people. The truth is they don't. They actually prefer to keep the circle really small and only connecting deeply with maybe 2 or 3 people. And that's it. So that's why it can be kind of confusing, so people understand that. And then what I do is I take a look at the big picture, and it looks like you've got quite a bit of influencing strengths here. And so we're going to go off that. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, so 5 influencing strengths. And then I don't see anything else here. So we got strategic and ideation. And then you've got relator and positivity, and then 1 executing. Okay, so with 5 influencing, and then what I teach people is what Gallup doesn't teach about is that I don't look at each individual strength until I understand the big picture, who Tim is at a holistic view. So big picture, holistic view, Tim is all about helping people get from where they are to where they want to be, a certain way, we'll call it, with Tim helping. Tim is, just so everyone understands, Tim is not the kind of person that just wants to believe that people are moving forward. He needs to see it. He needs to feel it. He needs to experience it. This is why he does podcasting. This is why he asks questions about people's journey, because he wants to feel their development, feel their moving forward, and so on. Would you say that that's true, Tim?
Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And I love to see the results.
Yeah, you almost need to see the results. And here's the thing, that when people who are high in influencing strengths, for them, that if they're not around a bunch of people that like if they're not around people that are moving forward, in other words, if they're around a bunch of people that aren't moving forward, the influencers feel like they aren't moving forward. And so it's excruciatingly painful to be around people that aren't moving forward or people that don't want to move forward, right? And so on. Does that resonate?
Yeah, it absolutely resonates. In fact, it's highly frustrating, and at times I could almost not be compassionate when I'm in those settings, because it's like, come on, we need to be
Yeah.
doing something.
So there's a South African term called Ubuntu. And I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but you're going to remember this going forward. Ubuntu in South African terms means I am because we are. Right? UBUNTU. And the influencer's biggest nightmare is I can't be unless we are.
Very good.
Okay, so now that we all get Tim, big picture, then I can take a look at each of Tim's strengths and start to go, how does this strength honor that desire? And it doesn't matter if that strength is an influencing strength or not. For example, positivity is a relationship building strength, but Tim doesn't use it to build relationships. Tim uses it to be contagiously enthusiastic about helping other people move forward. So for him, positivity shines when he's in an environment where all people are moving forward. And then at the same time, he's very, what I would call judgy about that, which means that if anybody tries to be negative in that environment, Tim's going to be right in their face saying, don't you dare. This had better be contagiously enthusiastic, and we must feel this big movement. And by the way, it's people moving forward, not a person. Tim is happy to see a person move forward, but he needs to see people, groups of people, hence podcasting and so on. Okay. All this resonate, Tim?
Yeah, it absolutely does. I actually just had a thought that's kind of odd. One of the things that's grieved me in the past couple of years with all that's been happening is that I feel as if culture and society has been moving backwards.
Yeah.
With everything going on, and it literally has been draining me. And it's because I believe, I mean, listen, we've had a pandemic, people have been locked down. I mean, I don't want to get into that, but it really has grieved me to a large extent. So you're correct. And so I took it to big picture, but I like to see that in groups and organizations and companies. And I work with leadership teams and businesses, and I love to see it. If we're going backwards or not moving forward, that's tough.
So then, since you're talking about going backwards, let's figure out where your going backwards strength is, which is context. Is that in the middle or at the very bottom?
Context is number 32.
Yeah. So when you have the thought, we are moving backwards, your body literally drains of energy. It's like leaving the car on, with the battery turned on. And when you wake up the next morning, the car is dead. You know what I mean? It's like that. It's like when you are thinking about the past, which is context, right? People who are high in context enjoy looking at the past. You don't, just like myself. In fact, you and I have this in common. We are about doing things in a way that breaks patterns, right? Because that's why you and I probably have strategic high. We want to use new patterns to break old ones that aren't working, right? So in other words, for you to think that we're going backwards, this is draining. And when you're living in that thought, you are no longer contagiously enthusiastic. You are now weird, right? You get weird. Because
sometimes moody, and sometimes not fun to be around, which is no fun if positivity is what I'm trying to.
Yeah. And so when I'm looking at your strengths, there's a lot of emotional type strengths like maximizer, relator, woo. These are communication is probably one of the most dramatic, because people of high communication love drama. They love like the highs and lows of stories and waving their hands around when they talk, things like that. There you go. Right. We move our bodies with our words, right? It's like the same thing. So what I'm seeing then is that there's possibly the more, like, I would say, strengths that aren't about emotion, which would be like discipline or deliberative. These would probably be low strengths for you. Is that true?
Take
a look and see if they're down there. The strength, deliberative or discipline. Where are
deliberative those? Is 28. Discipline is 13.
Okay, discipline's higher. That's cool. So for you, structure and routine is about managing emotions routinely, right? That's great. So deliberative would be low, because for you to only make decisions based on facts and figures instead of taking into account emotions or feelings or even opinions, right, would de-energize you. So once again, having deliberative low, it would appear as though for you to overthink would drain you. Would you say that that's true?
I think it is, but one thing that's interesting about it, and this might give a glimpse, I think you were kind of skirting this. I can be very habit forming disciplined, get up at a certain time, do my 100 push-ups, sit-ups, do my vitamins, drink my water, do my cup of coffee. But I really would love and desire to be more spontaneous. And my wife and I talked about this when we get over to hers here in a moment, but I mean, it's kind of like there's this little bit of ping pong going on the side of me that I see the benefit and value of being very disciplined and all that, but I'm not so sure that that's really something that I'm trying to shake and move beyond.
Well, is adaptability low? Is that's what you're trying to describe there?
Yeah, adaptability would be, oops, wait, I don't even see adaptability. Yeah, I'm not, adaptability is 34.
Oops.
34. Wait, let's make sure we're clear. Everybody knows.
Yeah.
30. That's how many of them there are, right?
Yeah. Imagine, Tim, if I said, Tim, you're the way that you move people forward has nothing to do with going with the flow. In fact, to go with the flow would dishonor your desire to move people forward.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It would impact my control, because control is something that I don't know where that is on here, but you
become less influential that way.
Yeah, that would be horrible.
So what I would teach you and teach anybody else is, like, look at your number 5 and your number 1. What is communication? Speaking passionately from your heart. What is strategic? Seeing multiple different ways of doing things. Okay. Speaking passionately from your heart and seeing multiple different ways of moving people forward. And you don't have to go with the flow. Just those 3 right there. How does that feel when I say those terms?
That's awesome. Yeah, that I would have joy if my world were revolved around that.
Okay. So then it becomes, okay, well, how do we do that? It's for me, it's simple. You can go with the flow, but as long as you are committed that it is honoring your desire to move forward. Like right here, you're in the moment with me right now, because you know that what we're doing here in this moment is moving other people forward. Right? You're doing what, actually, I'll be honest, adaptability is low for me. Maybe like you, I'm kind of a freight train. Once I'm going, and even if I'm going in the wrong direction, it takes me a while to slow down, or dare I say, even stop and change direction. Right? But we can do it because we're doing it right here, right now. Right? But why? Is because we're both honoring our desire to move people forward. Right? I've got 5 influencing strengths, much like yourself. Right? So look at how we can live in the moment. We can be present. Cool.
Yeah. Cool. Very cool. Yeah. And the reason it's so fascinating you bring that up is that when I'm doing this, it is like there's nothing going on around me.
Yeah. No future goals.
Many times when I'm doing other things, though, I'm multitasking, I'm checking this, I'm bouncing, I'm doing this and all, but literally it's kind of weird with Zoom because I'm having to look into the camera instead of looking in your eyes. When I look in your eyes, it looks like I'm looking down, but when I'm doing this, I'm looking straight into Eddie, and this is what I'm here doing this right now. And I love doing this.
Right. And that look at that, like all your audience needs to do is hear you say that. I can't do anything but this. And it is so fun. Right. And we're not here trying to focus on any future goals or trying to make money or whatever. We're just doing what we love here in this moment. How can I do this or something like this just every day, all the time? Look at you smiling, right? Like, that's all I want to do. That's it. Right. I set up Star Wars toys and all this other stuff because I like looking at them. But once they're set up, I'm moving on. It's gone. I've got like more things to do. And then all of a sudden I'm here, boom, this is awesome. So when we're looking at our strengths, we realize we don't have to be those things that we're not. We can just do things this way. And then we marry people who are the things that we're trying to be. because they're already good at it, right? So I would imagine, Glory's probably got adaptability somewhere between 1 and 15, I would bet.
Let's see here.
Take a look.
I'm jumping to hers. Oops, she's got it at 31.
31. Okay, so like Mary's alike. All right. Okay, so she would probably have, let's see, if I were to look at your top strengths, I would say the one that she has high that you would probably have middle or low would be do individualization. Is that high for
her? 14.
There it is. It's higher. Okay.
So what's interesting, you want me to give you hers real quick?
Yeah, let's do hers.
Cool. All right. Number 1, Glory is strategic.
Oh, cool. Look at that.
Interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. But she uses it differently than you do. Go ahead.
It is different. Yes. Number 2, achiever.
Okay.
Number 3, responsibility.
Okay. That one's low for you. Yes.
Yes, I believe so. Yeah, I'm 23 on responsibility.
I'll tell you why later. So don't forget. Ask me why later. I'll tell you why your responsibility is low for you. Go ahead.
Number 4, she's belief.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
5, learner.
Okay.
6, focus.
Okay.
7, relator.
Okay.
8, deliberative.
There it is.
9, discipline. And 10, competition.
All right. So she is the list maker between the two of you.
Oh, good gracious. Yes.
Okay, hold on.
Task on top of task. She
Her
will
lists have lists.
She'll do things, and then if she doesn't have it on the list, she'll make a list so she could check it off.
Yeah. You read that part of my book when I was talking about that, right?
Yeah.
She wakes up every morning. There's the little scoreboard that says 0 on it every day, and then like, okay, I got to put she has her list before she goes to bed, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then the reason is because the minute she wakes up, no time can be wasted because she's already behind. There's the 0, it's floating. I just woke up and I'm behind, right? That's her mentality. And so the way that you move people forward, the joy and the feeling that you get when you watch people overcome, barriers and walls and self-doubt, when you see them, you like, think about that. Imagine a person overcoming fear and self-doubt, someone you've been working with, and they're like coming across and they're standing on the stage and they're standing on the stage and they're saying, yay, I did it. That feeling that you have in your body is the exact same feeling she has every single time she checks something off of her list. It's the same feeling, even though you and I could never understand how that works. She gets it. And maybe she can't quite understand how you could be so energized by watching other people do things. She's like, I do things, and that's what excites me, right? That's her. Intense executor. She's got more executing strengths than you have influencing, which means she's far more obsessive about getting things done or getting things done the right way than you are about moving people forward. And you've got significance high, which means you know what it's like to have God looking you in the eye saying, you are not doing enough, Tim. She wakes up going, I need to get stuff done, and as little thinking as possible. So she's got like intellection probably at 28 or 29, maybe 32. I don't know.
16.
16. Oh, look at that. It's in the middle. Okay. So it's boring, right? It's like in the middle meh section. Yep. Mm-hmm. So, and that's I forgot. She's got learner at number 5, which means that everything she learns is about better ways to do processes. Recommend a book to her real quick. She probably will need this if she hasn't read it yet. It's called The 12-Week Year. It's how to get a year's worth of work done in 90 days. Like that's what the book is about. And if she's a learner executor, she's going to go, oh my gosh, why haven't I heard of that book already? How do I get a year's worth of work done?
There's a high likelihood. I believe I've seen that. I believe she's already impacted. Yeah. Come on now.
That's so good. If she has it, even better. All right, there you go. All right, brother. So what can we talk about when it comes to these two?
Well, let's ask some big picture things, and I want this to. Yeah, this is obviously about Glory and I, but let's see what the listener might gather from this. What are some potential conflicts between those two strengths? And then what are some potential, power? I mean, we both got strategic number one. Is that good or bad?
Okay, so I'll just go on the big picture stuff. When it comes to
Good.
when it comes to what we're about to talk about, it applies to a lot of things. Okay, the idea of using strengths in a marriage is a universal idea that can be applied to everything. You don't have to be married in order to apply these principles that I'm about to teach. So there's all kinds of marriages. There's marriage that you two experience or anybody that gets married, right? But then there's also the marriage between parent and child. That's a marriage, right? The marriage between two people who are running a business together, right? That's a marriage.
Which we also do that too. We've actually been running businesses together for almost 30 plus years.
And you doubled it up, right? So
Yeah.
it's almost like a layer of marriages. And then if you have children, there's more layers. And then if you do business with those children, oh boy, right? So when it comes to marriages in general, and that's what I'm talking about, all these types of marriages, it's to understand how your strengths are complementary and not contradictory. The only reason they would be conflicting is because of the belief that they are, right? So I can talk about how certain strengths could be perceived as conflicting, and I can talk about how they can be perceived as what was the other word? Complementary. Okay, so for example, the obvious ones right here is responsibility and communication. So to answer the question, why responsibility is low for you. People that are high in responsibility like to get to the point. They don't like fluff. They definitely wouldn't be doing a podcast that went an hour and a half because they would just say whatever they need to say in 5 minutes.
Yeah, they do the 20-minute deal. Yeah, there's a reason we're long form.
Yeah, exactly. So people that high on responsibility get to truth, fact, specifics, no fluff. People that are high in competition or communication love fluff, love to pepper sentences with more descriptive words and bring in emotion and setup, right? If you ask a person of high communication to tell a story, strap in, buckle up. It's going to be a while. But if you have a person with high responsibility, it'll be over in just a second. You know what I mean? So could that be perceived as contradictory, right? Yeah, absolutely. Where it's like one asks, like the person of high responsibility would ask the person of high communication a simple question and never get a simple answer. And be like, oh my gosh, can you just get to the point? I've got things to do. I'm sure you've heard that many times.
Oh yeah.
Right? Okay. And then for you, it's like the person of high communication asks a question and wants more information, even wants some emotion or elaboration, but doesn't get that. They only get one or two simple word answers. And it's like, okay, now I feel the need to ask more questions. And then the executor can feel like that's a waste of time.
Sure.
See what I mean? So those can, on the surface, appear to be contradictory unless you look at the other way, which is the complement. Imagine a person who can know exactly how much descriptive words to put in and be equally efficient with their communication. Okay. All the things that you and I want to be. Someone who can be dramatic and fun and energizing, but and quick to the point at the same time. So that's who you both become when you're, let's say, doing the business together, right? Or even working with each other, because you two are best when one is all the fluff and the other one is all the direct to the point. So that the people that you come around in contact with get both.
Yeah.
Without thinking that one should be more like the other. Right. You become that perfect person who can do both. Everything is complementary when you choose to look at what you become when you are together. You be you, she be her, and then you are both that perfect person who can do it all.
Right.
Right.
Very good. All right. So one of the things I want to a little bit more on this, and I'm watching our time. We need to jump off here shortly, but I also I'm a executive coach for leadership teams of companies and organizations.
Yeah.
And it's real interesting. I look at strengths. Sometimes we also look at weaknesses because we need to fill some gaps. When you've got a leadership team of 5 to 7 executives, you need to find what we're missing.
Yeah.
But Eddie, something you brought up, I think, is probably the most powerful thing, and maybe this is the root of a lot of this in relationship, and that is to really appreciate the strengths that other people have
Yeah, they're different.
and
Yeah.
embrace it instead of, from a critical standpoint, saying something like, and I know this has never been said in my relationship, you've never said it in your husband-wife relationship, something like you never or you always fill in the blank. See, you've never done that, have you?
No, that's where we all just like, if you're going to start off a sentence with you never or you always, you're done. You are
done.
now
Yeah.
done.
All right. So here's the problem. Sometimes we don't say it, but oftentimes we think it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, where we have challenges with appreciating these strengths in others. Do you do a lot of work with couples? Have you done a lot of couples and
Yeah.
kind of?
I've done marriage workshops only because I noticed this thing that you're talking about. I started out trying to help two business partners work together, and I learned that it's like a marriage, like a real marriage. And then I translated that into marriage workshops, and it ended up being this really life-changing thing for a lot of people. So every strength is an intense focus on a certain thing. And when a person like yourself, for example, has such an intense focus on one particular domain, which is to move people forward, certain things just don't get done. Like I would bet you're the kind of person that can walk by laundry that needs to be done and just not even notice it. Is that true?
It's sort of true, except I do all our laundry and I do it very disciplined and diligently. So that's kind of a weird,
I'm just
but,
curious. I don't know. Everyone's
but here's a weird one though, that we've had recently. For years, I would have to, like, the bed would have to be made and all that. And recently I've just kind of gotten to where I don't really give a rip if the bed's made or not. And my wife's like, we got to make the bed. I'm going, why? We live in an
Right.
RV. Nobody goes back there during the day. When we go back there, we're going back to sleep.
Yeah. And so when we have a focus, it doesn't even have to be intense. When we have a focus on one thing, that means we don't have a focus on other things. And so the problem here is that the thing that you focus on, she doesn't focus on. They're not that important to her, but that's why she married you. You know what I mean? So that the important things get focused on and she doesn't have to do it. But if she looks at you and says, oh my gosh, Tim, you just don't worry about whether or not things are done the right way. You're only worried about people and whether they're moving forward. But sometimes things need to be done the right way, Tim. Well, this is the thing in businesses, is that, like, for example, I have a company and it's, for me, it's all strengths based. And everybody in my business only does the things that they're energized by. And if there's something that the company needs that none of us are energized by, boom, that's a new position we get to fill, to find someone who's energized by that. Right. But that also brings in a little bit of having to be, I wouldn't say tolerant, but I would say appreciative. Right. And here's the quick analogy on this. Imagine a dog who constantly barks when anybody walks by the house. Okay. It can be a little annoying and loud. And the feeling is, oh my gosh, dog, shut up, stop barking. But if someone were to break in the house, in that situation, you're like, bark as loud as you can, because we need to wake everybody up. We're in danger. Right. And, or even scare the crap out of someone trying to break in. So the principle here is, I must appreciate when that dog barks, no matter what, because that's who the dog is. And so when there's something that a person does that annoys us, there is a strength in there that we can rely on. So we can stop being tolerant of how people do things different than us and start being appreciative of them, even if they're not convenient for us. We can be appreciative because they are so good. That's a side effect, we'll call it, or a symptom of what they're really good at that we lean on. Like, you need a good numbers person on your team, Tim, but that person's not going to be too worried about people's feelings. And so to tell them to be more sensitive to people's feelings it's like telling the dog to stop being a dog. No, it's okay. I get that we didn't hire you to be the person we would cry your shoulder on. We didn't hire you to be the one to be sensitive. We hired you to be the numbers person. And then this person, like Tim, we hired you to be the emotions person. We hired you to be the, to be the inspirational, motivational speaker guy. Does that make sense?
It does. And
So that's
one
what I
of the
teach.
things, yeah, one of the things that's interesting about that is that what I picked up on when you were saying that is that, and I know we've all done it, so I'll go ahead and spit it out here. I think we're very selective about appreciating people's strengths. In other
Sure.
words, we want that dog barking when someone's breaking in the house, but we don't want them barking and creating alarm just in normal situations. And there's probably a lot of things like that. So, Eddie, listen, we have gone long. I love it. I could keep going. But what I really want to do now is that I want us to speak to the listener that's going, "Whoa, okay, what should I do next with all this? Man, this is awesome," all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to direct them to,
Yes.
how would someone begin if they've never been exposed to the strengths, to the strength finders, to any of that? How would they begin? In just a little while, I'll ask people how they could connect with you if they want to specifically get with you, but just give somebody a few baby steps to get started.
The easiest way to start, it would be to get my book, and I make it extremely inexpensive to get. As of this recording right now, we only have the digital copy because I'm about to create a second edition. But get the digital copy, and it's very inexpensive to get it. You go to unleashyourstrengths.net to get it, and then take the assessment. And you go to gallup.com to do that, GALLUP.com, and make sure that when you take the assessment that you get your full 34. As of this recording right now, it's $49.99 to take the assessment. Occasionally, but rarely, Gallup offers discounts, but I wouldn't wait for it. Just take it. I promise you, the $50 it takes to take the assessment, and then the whatever the cost is for my book right now, it's inexpensive. Whatever that cost is, oh my gosh, to find what's wonderful about you, there will be such a return on investment on that that you'll forget all about that money. I promise that. So start there, and then the book will walk you through what to do next.
Excellent. All right. Great. Thanks for sharing that. All right. If people
Yeah.
want to connect specifically with you, is the book where they do that, or is there somewhere else you want to send people? We'll include it all in the
Yeah.
notes too, but yeah.
So I'm very active on Facebook and pretty active on Instagram. I like Instagram; it's fun, but I'm not super committed in there. If you're on Instagram or Facebook, just send me a Facebook message or an Instagram direct message. I respond to those. I really love having conversations with people who are, especially the ones that are impacted by what I do. So just message me on Facebook or follow me on Instagram. It's a great place.
Excellent. We'll include down in the notes the link so people can do that. Eddie, again, man, what a great conversation. I love it. We've gone long, but I think it's been valuable and been a great tool for people to listen to and go back and really begin wrapping their head around strengths and how important it is. We are Seek, Go, Create here, Eddie. I kind of told you this. Which one of those words would be more important, resonate with you more than the other two, and why? That's my final question.
Oh my gosh, right now it's create. I don't do a whole lot of seeking right now. I do very little consuming right now, especially in social media. There's so much I'm creating, and and it's because I'm not without ideas. So I've got my second book that I'm about to release in February, and then I've also got a documentary that's about to be done. It's called Unleash Your Strengths. It's about this movement, and that's going to be a really great documentary that'll be coming out soon. And then I've got a new program that's going to change network marketing forever. And I can't wait to unleash this onto the world and open it up to the top network marketing coaches in the world, which some of them I'm friends with. And so right now I'm in straight create mode, and I can't stop. I'm like, 2022 is going to be a very big year for me. It'll be what I think will be the first year where I really see my mission making a massive impact on the world. So I'm all about create right now. Thanks, Tim. That's a great
Wow.
question.
Yeah, Eddie, thank you so much. If you've been listening in, two things I want to just kind of mention to you. First of all, if you visit seekgocreate.com, you'll see extensive notes. We have detailed episode notes with all the links, all the resources from what we've been talking about here. Make sure you visit there. There's also a place where you can ask questions or put comments in. We'd love to see that and hear that. And then one other thing, I kind of mentioned this, I believe at the beginning, but I'll mention it again. If this has been an impactful conversation with you, I believe that it should have been. If not, we need to have a conversation a little bit deeper. But if it has been, I'm going to ask you to share this. If you're listening to this or watching this on socials, you could share it. We're on all the social channels. We're Seek, Go, Create. If you're listening to us on the podcast, take a screenshot, share it with people that you know need to hear that, need to hear this message. It is time for more people to begin walking in what they were created to do, what their strengths are, what their assignment is in this world. And I believe the message that Eddie's sharing, the conversation that we had today, will help with that. So thanks for listening. Appreciate your patience. Until next time, with new episodes every Monday. Until next time, continue being all that you were created to be.